They called me the family failure on Christmas Eve, 2022. Right there at the dinner table in front of 17 people, with turkey going cold and wine flowing hot. My sister Simone stood up, raised her glass of expensive Merlot and said, "Let's toast to Darius, everyone. 62 years old and finally achieving his full potential, as our parents' basement tenant." The room exploded in laughter. Not polite chuckles. Real, belly-deep laughter that shook the chandelier my mother was so proud of. I sat there in my Walmart sweater, the one with a reindeer on it that I'd worn for 5 Christmases because I couldn't afford a new one. And I felt something inside me break. Or maybe it was something waking up. Hard to tell the difference sometimes. If you've ever been the punchline at your own family gathering, if you've ever sat there while people who share your blood tear you apart for sport, pull up a chair. Get comfortable, because this story's got teeth and it bites back. I'm Darius Montgomery, and at 62 years old, I was everything they said I was. Divorced, broke, living in my parents' basement in Silver Spring, Maryland, sleeping on a fold-out couch that squeaked every time I turned over. I'd just been laid off from the same corporate job I'd held for 35 years. Patterson & Associates, a logistics company where I was a mid-level operations manager. They gave me a handshake, a cheap pen set, and $5,000 in severance. 35 years reduced to $5,000 and a best of luck. My ex-wife, Regina, had taken the house in the divorce 3 years earlier. Said I was emotionally unavailable and lacked ambition. Maybe she was right. My son Marcus was 38, living in San Diego, working in tech. We talked maybe 3 times a year. Christmas, his birthday, my birthday if he remembered. I'd somehow raised a stranger. But here's the thing about hitting rock bottom at 62. People think your story's over. They think you should just accept it, fade into retirement, play golf, watch the world pass you by. They look at you like you're already halfway to the grave, like ambition past 60 is embarrassing, desperate, pathetic. That Christmas Eve, sitting at that table while my family laughed at my pain, I made myself a promise. A quiet one. The kind you don't say out loud because if you fail, the shame would kill you. I promised myself I'd show them what a failure really looks like when it gets back up. And if you like stories about people who were counted out but came back swinging, stories about proving every single person wrong when they said it was too late, go ahead and hit that subscribe button on Grandpa's Diaries. Because I'm just getting started, and you're gonna want to see where this goes. I wasn't always the family disappointment. There was a time when they had hope for me. I was born in 1960, the middle child, sandwiched between Preston the Golden Boy and Simone the Firecracker. My father, James Montgomery, was a CPA with his own small firm. My mother, Loretta, taught African American literature at Howard University. We were solid upper-middle-class black family in Washington, D.C. Not rich, but comfortable. The kind of comfortable that comes with expectations. Preston was 6 years older than me, and from the time he could walk, he knew he wanted to be a doctor. Straight A's, debate team captain, full ride to Johns Hopkins. He became a cardiothoracic surgeon, one of the best in Boston, saved lives, made $500,000 a year. My parents would light up when they talked about him. "Our son, the doctor," my mother would say, her whole face glowing with pride. Simone was 5 years younger than me, and she was born fighting. Argued with teachers, won every competition she entered, got into Columbia Law. By 30, she was a senior associate at Morrison & Rothstein in Manhattan, pulling in $300,000 a year. Married a corporate attorney named David. They had a brownstone in Brooklyn Heights. My parents bragged about her at church, at dinner parties, to anyone who would listen. And then there was me, Darius, the quiet one, the one who liked computers back when computers were weird, the one who got B's and C's because I was more interested in teaching myself basic programming language than studying Shakespeare. My father would look at my report cards and sigh. "You're smart enough, Darius. You just don't apply yourself." I heard that phrase so many times it became background noise. I went to Maryland, got a degree in business administration because I didn't know what else to do. Met Regina in my junior year. She was beautiful, ambitious, studying marketing. We got married when I was 24. Had Marcus 2 years later. I got the job at Patterson & Associates right after graduation. Started in the warehouse, worked my way up to operations manager. It was fine, steady, safe. Not impressive, but it paid the bills. For years, that was enough. I'd show up to family dinners and Preston would talk about his surgeries. Simone would talk about her cases, and I'd nod and smile and eat my food. Regina would squeeze my hand under the table and I'd think, this is okay, I'm okay. But I wasn't building anything. I was just existing, going through motions, waiting for something I couldn't name. The cracks started showing in my 40s. Regina wanted more. A bigger house, better vacations, private schools for Marcus. Why can't you be more ambitious? She'd ask. Preston's a surgeon, Simone's a lawyer. What are you, Darius? I didn't have an answer. By the time I turned 59, she was done waiting for me to become someone else. The divorce was quick and brutal. My parents didn't take sides, but I could see the disappointment in their eyes. Another failure to add to my list. Another way I didn't measure up. The first real cut came at Thanksgiving 2021. I'd been living in the basement for about 8 months by then, still employed but barely hanging on at Patterson. The company was downsizing, and I could feel the axe hanging over my head. I showed up to my parents' house in Chevy Chase with a store-bought pumpkin pie because I couldn't afford to make anything from scratch. Preston was there with his wife Angela and their 3 daughters, all grown now, all successful in their own right. One was a pediatrician, one was a lawyer like her aunt, one was getting her MBA at Wharton. Simone came with David and their 3 kids, all in private schools, all dressed like they'd stepped out of a J. Crew catalog. And then there was me, in khakis I'd owned for a decade and a button-down with a frayed collar I hoped nobody would notice. Dinner conversations circled around achievements like vultures around a carcass. Preston talked about a groundbreaking surgery he'd performed. Simone talked about a $50 million deal she'd closed. My nieces and nephews talked about internships at Goldman Sachs and summer programs at Stanford. I sat there pushing mashed potatoes around my plate, invisible. Then my father, 87 years old and sharp as ever, looked at me and asked the question I'd been dreading. Darius, how's work? The table went quiet. Everyone looked at me. I felt my throat tighten. It's fine, Dad. Keeping busy. He frowned. Just fine? At your age, shouldn't you be more established? Preston was running his own practice by 60. Simone laughed, that sharp bark of a laugh she had. Dad, Darius has been doing the same job for 30 years. He's not exactly climbing any ladders. The table erupted in polite chuckles. My mother touched my father's arm, tried to change the subject, but the damage was done. I saw it in their eyes. Pity mixed with contempt, like I was a problem they didn't know how to solve. I excused myself early, said I wasn't feeling well. Nobody tried to stop me. I drove back to the basement and sat in the dark for 3 hours, listening to my parents moving around upstairs, their footsteps creaking on the old hardwood floors. I felt like a ghost haunting my own life. By December of 2022, things had gotten worse. Patterson laid me off 2 weeks before Christmas. My boss, a kid half my age named Trevor, called me into his office and fed me the corporate script. We're restructuring. Your position's been eliminated. You've been a valuable member of the team. Valuable enough to fire right before the holidays. They didn't even let me clean out my desk myself. Security walked me out like I was a criminal. I told my parents that night. My father just nodded, resigned. My mother said, well, maybe this is a chance to finally retire, dear. Retire to what? A basement couch and Social Security checks that wouldn't cover rent anywhere in the DMV? I was 62, not 82. I wasn't ready to be put out to pasture, but nobody asked me what I wanted. They'd already written my ending. Christmas Eve, 2022, the night that changed everything. My mother insisted I come to dinner even though I told her I wasn't up for it. Family needs to be together for Christmas, Darius, she said. So I put on my reindeer sweater and walked into a room full of people who'd already succeeded at life. The house smelled like honey-baked ham and sweet potato casserole. The tree was 8 feet tall, covered in ornaments collected over 50 years. Nat King Cole played softly. It should have felt warm. Instead, it felt like a museum of a life I'd never have. Preston arrived looking healthy and wealthy. Just retired from his practice, sold it for millions. Simone and David showed up in a rented Mercedes, their kids taller and more expensive looking every year. I sat at the far end of the table, next to my nephew who spent the entire meal on his phone. I might as well have been furniture. Dinner started fine. We said grace. People passed dishes and made small talk. Then the wine started flowing. And with the wine came loosened tongues. Preston talked about his retirement plans. Italy, a beach house, golf. Simone talked about her $75,000 year-end bonus. My father beamed at them both. That's when Simone turned to me. Her eyes were bright with wine and something meaner. So Darius, what are your retirement plans? Oh wait, you can't retire because you got fired, right? A few people shifted uncomfortably. My mother said, Simone, that's not appropriate. But Simone wasn't done. No, I'm serious. Let's acknowledge it. Darius is 62 years old, living in mom and dad's basement, unemployed, divorced, basically waiting to die. Right? The room went silent. Even Jordan looked up from his phone. I felt my hands shake. Simone, stop, I said quietly. She stood up, wobbling slightly, and raised her glass. No, let's be honest. Let's toast to Darius, everyone. 62 years old and finally achieving his full potential as our parents' basement tenant. To the family failure. She drank. A few people looked horrified. But Preston? Preston laughed. A real laugh, head thrown back. Jesus, Simone, brutal but accurate. My father didn't defend me. My mother looked at her plate. David smirked into his wine. My nieces and nephews stared at me like I was something pathetic they'd found on the sidewalk. And in that moment, something inside me died. Or maybe something was born. Hard to tell the difference. I stood up, grabbed my coat, and walked out into the cold December night without saying a word. Behind me, I heard my mother calling my name. I didn't turn around. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, engine running, heat blasting, hands gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. And I made a decision. I was going to prove every single one of them wrong. Or I was going to die trying. At 62 years old, when everyone said my story was over, I decided to write a new ending. One they'd never see coming. I didn't go back to my parents' house for 3 days. Spent Christmas alone in a Denny's eating pancakes and drinking bad coffee while families laughed in booths around me. The waitress, a woman about my age with kind eyes, gave me extra bacon without charging. "Merry Christmas, hun," she said. I almost cried into my eggs. Those first weeks after Christmas were the darkest of my life. I'd wake up on that squeaky fold-out couch at 5 in the morning, stare at the basement ceiling with its water stains and exposed pipes, and ask myself what I was doing. 62 years old. No job, no wife, no respect. Simone's words played on loop in my head. Family failure, basement tenant, waiting to die. But anger is a strange fuel. It burns different than hope. Hope is warm and soft and easy to lose. Anger is cold and hard, and it keeps you moving even when you want to quit. I started spending 18 hours a day on my old laptop, the one I'd bought refurbished 5 years ago. I had $5,000 in severance. That was it. That was my entire runway. Here's what nobody knew about me. For 35 years at Patterson & Associates, I'd been watching, learning. While everyone else thought I was just some middle manager pushing papers, I was studying supply chain logistics, noticing inefficiencies, seeing patterns. I'd taught myself Python programming at night, SQL databases, basic machine learning. Not because I had to, because I was curious, because my brain needed something to chew on besides my own mediocrity. I'd seen how small and medium-sized businesses hemorrhaged money on supply chain problems. Overstocking, understocking, routing inefficiencies, bad vendor relationships. And I'd seen how the solutions out there were either too expensive or too complicated for companies that weren't Amazon or Walmart. There was a gap, a big one. So I built something. Started coding in January 2023. 16 18-hour days. I ate ramen noodles and peanut butter sandwiches. Drank instant coffee until my hands shook. My mother would come downstairs sometimes, peek in, see me hunched over my laptop at 3 in the morning, and just shake her head. She thought I was having some kind of breakdown. Maybe I was. But I was building something too. I called it ChainSync, a platform that used AI and machine learning to optimize supply chains for small and medium businesses. Simple interface, affordable pricing, real results. I used 2,000 of my severance to register the LLC, build a basic website, and run some targeted ads. The other 3,000 I lived on. Rice and beans. No heat in the basement because I was trying to save my parents' money on utilities. I wore 3 sweaters and kept typing. My family didn't ask what I was doing. Preston called once in February to check in, which really meant make sure I wasn't going to embarrass them further. Simone didn't call at all. My son Marcus sent a text. "You okay, Dad?" I wrote back, "Working on something. Talk soon." He didn't respond. Nobody believed in me, but I was starting to believe in myself. And at 62, that was enough. My first customer came in March 2023, a small manufacturing company in Baltimore making custom furniture. The owner, Patricia Jenkins, was losing money on shipping and about to go under. She found my $40 Google ad and called skeptical. "Your software can save me money? What's the catch?" $500 a month, I said. "If I don't save you at least $5,000 in the first quarter, I'll refund every penny." She laughed. "I've spent money on dumber things, let's try it." ChainSync saved her $12,000 in 3 months. Cut shipping costs by 30%, optimized inventory, automated vendor management. Patricia called in June, almost crying. "Darius, you saved my business." She posted about it on LinkedIn, tagged me. That's when things started moving. By July, I had 8 clients. By September, 23. Still working from the basement, but I'd hired a part-time developer in India and a college student for customer support. It wasn't glamorous, but it was real. In October, everything changed. Naomi Chen, a partner at Apex Ventures, wanted to meet. We met at a Starbucks in Bethesda. She was sharp, direct. "Tell me why I should invest in a 63-year-old first-time founder." I told her the truth. Because everyone's already counted me out. Because I've got nothing to lose and everything to prove. Because I spent 35 years watching others build empires, and I finally figured out I could build one too. She smiled. "How much do you need?" I'd practiced this 100 times. $250,000 for 20% equity. She didn't blink. "I'll give you $300 for 15%. But I'm coming on as advisor, and you'll listen to me." We shook hands. By December, ChainSync had 72 clients across 8 states. We'd saved customers $2.3 million combined. I'd moved out of my parents' basement into a small apartment in Rockville. Nothing fancy, but mine. 5 full-time employees. 40,000 monthly revenue and climbing. Christmas Eve, 2023. Exactly 1 year after the worst night of my life, I got an email from Forbes. They wanted to profile me for their new Millionaires List. After our Series A funding round, ChainSync was valued at $45 million. I was officially a millionaire at 63. I sat staring at that email for 20 minutes. Thought about Simone's toast. "To the family failure." I smiled. Message received. Message returned. Christmas Eve, 2024. 2 years after they called me the family failure. Forbes published the article on December 20th. Darius Montgomery, the 64-year-old who built a tech empire from his parents' basement. The photo showed me in my small office in Rockville, gray hair, reading glasses, smiling like a man who'd just won a war nobody thought he could fight. My mother called that morning. Her voice was small, careful. "Darius, we saw the article. Your father and we'd like you to come to Christmas dinner. Please." I thought about saying no. Thought about letting them sit with their shame the way I'd sat with mine. But Eleanor raised me better than that. "I'll be there, Mama." I pulled up to their house in Chevy Chase at 6 p.m. in my new Tesla. Not the most expensive one, just nice enough to make a point. When I walked in, the room went silent. Preston was there with Angela, Simone and David, all the nieces and nephews, everyone who'd laughed 2 years ago. Nobody was laughing now. Simone couldn't look at me. She stood by the punch bowl staring at her shoes like they were the most interesting things in the world. Preston walked over, extended his hand, tried to smile. "Darius, congratulations. Really impressive what you've built." His voice was tight, forced. I shook his hand but didn't say thank you. Didn't say anything. Dinner was awkward. People asked careful questions about ChainSync, about the Forbes article, about my incredible journey. I answered politely, briefly, watching Simone push food around her plate. Finally, she spoke. "Darius, I owe you an apology. What I said 2 years ago, it was cruel, unforgivable. I was drunk, but That's no excuse. I looked at her across the table. This woman who'd raised a glass to my failure, who'd laughed while I died inside. You're right, I said quietly. It was cruel. You said I was waiting to die, that I'd never be anyone. You said that in front of our entire family and nobody stopped you. Not Preston, not Mom, not Dad. Nobody. The table went silent again. My father opened his mouth, closed it. My mother's eyes filled with tears. I stood up, not angry, just tired. I forgive you, Simone. I forgive all of you. But I'll never forget. You taught me something important that night. You taught me that the only person who needs to believe in me is me. I didn't storm out dramatically. I hugged my mother, shook my father's hand, and drove home to my apartment. The apartment I'd earned, the life I'd built. At 64 years old, when everyone said my story was over, I wrote a new ending. One nobody saw coming. Here's what I learned. It's never too late. Never. People will count you out. Family will count you out. You'll count yourself out. But as long as you're breathing, you can build something. You can prove them wrong. Not for them, for you. So let me ask you something. Have you ever been the punchline? Have you ever sat at a table while people who were supposed to love you tore you apart? Have you ever been told it's too late, you're too old, you're too broken to start over? Tell me your story in the comments, because I guarantee you're not alone, and I guarantee it's not too late. If this story lit something in you, if it made you think maybe, just maybe, you've got one more fight left in you, hit that subscribe button on Grandpa's Diaries. I've got more stories, more battles, more proof that the best revenge isn't anger. It's success, and it's never ever too late to claim it. The family failure sends his regards.